UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Engage.
78 years have passed since the days of the original USS Enterprise. Now a new Galaxy starship has been designed.
Transporter Chief, beam our listeners aboard. Welcome to Galaxy Class, a Star Trek The Next Generation podcast on the United Federation of Podcasts network. As usual, I am Joe Keegan, who for today, I think for the next while, I'm going to be the head of astrophysics until I decide to change specialty. And we have with me today the Chief Recreational Officer, Ria Papagiorgio, and also Chief of Security, Pierre LaRocco.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Hello.
Great.
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm
Doing
a bit nervous today. This is episode 1, so we can't mess it up. But also quite excited because we have a super awesome special guest.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very excited for today.
Logs accessed.
We don't have any feedback, listeners, so when we do, obviously with it being episode 1 and you maybe have just listened to episode 0, which was our introduction episode, then we will bring you some feedback when we have it, or when you provide it, because we like reading out your stuff. So that's cool.
Especially if it's nice.
Yes. And we read out the horrible stuff as well, but...
That's true. Just be honest.
It really helps us with the light banner that we're instructed on our outline to perform.
Oh yeah, this is the light banter section. Oh, how are you today?
Yes.
I'm fine, thank you so much.
I'm just doing wonderful.
Okay,
So kind of
light
you to
banter
ask.
ends.
Okay, serious mode now.
Done. Cool.
This is the captain. Senior officers will report to my ready room immediately.
Okay, listeners, we have a very, very, very special guest with us today in the form of Scott MacDonald. And you will know Scott because you'll have seen him in a bunch of stuff. If you've ever watched TV or movies, you will have seen him. In terms of Star Trek, Scott played Nivek in the TNG episode Face of the Enemy. He also played Ensign Rollins in the Voyager pilot The Caretaker, Tosk in DS9's Captive Pursuit, Goran'Agar, a Jem'Hadar in DS9's Hippocratic Oath, and Dolim, a Xindi reptilian military officer and member of the Xindi Council in 8 different episodes of Enterprise. Welcome on board Galaxy Class, Scott. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. Glad to be here.
I looked at the rankings of what actors have played the most characters in different kind of incarnations of Star Trek, and you're close to the top.
Yeah, I'm not positive about this. I think there's 3 or 4 guys who've played 7 characters.
Yeah.
Vaughn Armstrong.
Vaughn
Jeffrey
Armstrong.
Combs.
Jeffrey Combs.
Randy Oglesby,
Mm-hmm.
who was Degra in Enterprise with me. He's played 7. And I don't know, I can't remember the other guy's name. I think there's 4 of them. But I've actually played 6 technically because I was in the Klingon CD-ROM live action game with Robert O'Reilly that was directed by Jonathan Frakes, which was a live action game that you played online, a CD-ROM game. And we shot for a month wearing Klingon gear and everything. So I've also been a Klingon. I was Quaylon, who is Gowron's brother in that particular game. It was a heck of a lot of fun playing a Klingon too.
Very cool. Did you have the crazy Gowron eyes?
Yes, I did. Yes,
Are they genetic?
Yes, I did because we were brothers.
Of course.
Quaylon and
Perfect.
Gowron. So I thought, well, I better mimic what Robert does. So.
And here's me doing a TNG podcast, not knowing what our guest has been in. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was 5 and now it's
Joe.
6. I'm going to get hate mail from our listeners for this, I'm sure.
Well, you know what? You're really going to be embarrassed because I did send it to you in an email this week.
Yeah, I know this, but like for the purposes of our listeners and our podcast, yeah, I know this, but our listeners don't. So
Our listeners don't know that Joe's actually illiterate.
Okay.
So, Scott, how did you get started with your acting career?
I did a couple of plays in high school, but I didn't have any plans to be an actor or anything like that at that time. I was in sports, in choir. I was in a lot of things. I was in one of those. There's a smaller high school in Montana, and it was one of those places where if you're a joiner, you're in just about everything. So, I was in some plays and I enjoyed it. And then I got to Washington State University in Eastern Washington, and I was taking my classes, taking my normal class load, and my older brother preceded me there at Washington State, and he said, "You know what? Go down and take Speech 160, beginning acting. It's an easy A." So I went down and took it, and it was kind of a beginning acting class, and I enjoyed the instructor a lot. And then we did these freshman productions at the end, kind of one-act plays, and there was a little bit of a genesis there. The head of the department said, we did all the productions and everything, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, not for nothing, not telling you to do this or whatever, but you're really good at this. You have a natural talent for this. You have instincts that are smart for this. You have a good stage presence." And of course, I think I was 18 years old, and so somebody told me I was good at something. I drank that like water to a thirsty man, and it sort of got its genesis there. I did a lot of plays at Washington State University, and I have a degree in broadcast journalism from there. It's a famous broadcast school, the Edward R. Murrow School of Journalism. And I also have a degree, a BA in speech theater, because I just wound up taking so many classes and going into that acting track. But the thing that really settled it was on a lark, I went and did an audition for what they used to call the League of Professional Training Schools in the United States, where there was, 13 or 14 colleges that had professional actor training programs, they called them. And I auditioned for the league schools, and I was accepted to a handful of them. And one of them was at California Institute of the Arts, which is Walt Disney School for the Performing Arts in just north of LA, probably 30 miles out in Valencia. Making that decision to go get a master's degree and making that decision to spend that money on that particular professional training program was, I sat down and thought, okay, are you deciding that you're going to try to be a professional actor? Because that's what this is all about. And so I went there, and I'm a firm believer that had I not gone there, I wouldn't be a pro. Their training program was really, really, really good. And when I graduated from there, I moved up to Seattle, Washington, and back in that time, still is, but back in that time, it was an especially great theater town. And I started out doing, because I was classically trained at Cal Arts, I got a lot of jobs doing Shakespeare and the classics, and got my union cards, and I was just a professional stage actor for a good period at the beginning of my career. So that was kind of the genesis of how I became an actor.
Sounds like it was kind of accidental.
That's so cool.
As well. Because you're
going from an easy A,
that easy A course,
and encouragement from
to kind of going down
the
this
dominoes
path.
just kind of fell. The dominoes just kind of fell that way, and I really enjoyed it. Obviously, performing on stage. It's a tough profession, so you've got to love it, because there's a lot of rejection in this game, and every actor experiences, no matter what level they're at, experiences that rejection and that doubt, and that's a big part of what we do as actors. I think that's why so often you hear actors, especially actors that get on Star Trek, because Star Trek actually, Junie Lowry Johnson and Ron Surma were the casting directors, and they frequently found theater-trained actors to go on Star Trek, most especially as the guest stars, because there was a little bit of a larger and a more gothic quality to some of these characters. Think about some of those fantastic big, huge, heavy guys playing those old Klingons, wheezing and drinking their blood wine and eating the gawk, and then that sort of broad, wide sort of performance of those type of things. And of course, a guy like Patrick Stewart sets a standard unlike any other. He's such a formally trained actor, and I think they understood that you get nuance out of actors who are really well trained. And so I tip my cap and a great thank you to Junie Lowry Johnson and Ron Surma, because they saw me in a play in LA and invited me to come and audition for Star Trek. And I mean, I had done no TV, none whatsoever, to speak of. My first guest star role was Tosk on Deep Space Nine in LA. And there was quite a debate in that process of casting for Captive Pursuit about whether or not to hire me. And I understood it. I mean, I was inexperienced to their point of view, but I was bound and determined to play Tosk a specific way, and I stuck to it throughout the audition. And the director's name was Corey Allen, and he is trained in the method school. Corey Allen, in the movie Rebel Without a Cause, he's the young man who goes over the cliff in the car and has the knife fight with James Dean in that. And he came in with James Dean and Brando and Dennis Hopper and all of those method actors who sort of changed the way actors acted in film. And so Corey was an incredible director who trusted actors' instincts. And I could talk this entire time just about the experience I had with Corey. I have nothing but admiration for him. He was a great acting instructor in LA for a long time, but also just an incredible director. And all he did when I played Tosk was he just asked me, well, why would you do that? Like, for instance, one of the first scenes that I did, I walked in and the show was brand new. It was only, I think Tosk was maybe the 6th episode that aired, but it was the 4th one they shot. But it took a little bit longer to put that one on the air because there was a lot of special effects in it. So I didn't know any of the characters other than O'Brien because I knew him from TNG. And I walk out, Tosk comes through. He's the first creature to come through from the other galaxy, first creature ever through the wormhole. So I thought, well, this is a fantastic opportunity to show someone experiencing everything that they do for the first time. So I thought, Tosk has this innate fascination with every single thing he's looking at because it's all brand new and different. And he, of course, is, being hunted. So he's this adaptoid who's shooting through different galaxies and different planets and things. So he's searching everywhere he goes for opportunities to stay alive. So it was really a fascinating idea of a character to be able to play. And then, of course, I was buried in 6 hours of makeup.
Yeah.
That was Michael Westmore's first ever Emmy was Tosk. Yeah,
Really?
you guys see that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's Tosk. And for those listening, I'm showing our friends a picture of Tosk just to remind them. But it was a phenomenal job. I mean, on every level. So exciting and fun and interesting. And I had so many unique and cool experiences on that first ever job that it was because that makeup was so hard, 6 hours, I lost, I think it was 16 pounds in 8 days, just sweating.
Wow.
I had a neoprene suit. The only parts of my body that were exposed were the palms of my hands and my eyelids. And I had fangs, and the mask was glued inside my lips. And I had cat's eye contact lenses that were hard. And I don't wear contacts, so I couldn't touch them because I had makeup on my hands. So they had an eye technician there. And every once in a while, we'd be doing a shot, and they'd say, cut, cut, cut. And I'd say, no, that's the line. And they'd say, no, your contact lens is spinning. And then a guy would walk up. His name was Jean-Pierre, and he would walk up and he would literally stick his finger in my eye and roll that contact lens back into position. And then as soon as his hand came out of my eye, I would hear Corey say, "Action." I finally went to Corey and said, "Listen, man, I need about 10 seconds after that guy gets his finger out of my eye, because it's never happened to me in my life before." And Scott MacDonald is standing there with a finger in his eye, and then that guy leaves and I'm Tosk again. So just give me a minute to find Tosk. It was a
blink the finger out your eye. Yeah.
It was a great relief that Tosk was received well, because when you're inside that suit and when you're doing that work, and I mean, if you stop and think about it, you have no facial expression, none at all. You don't have your eyebrows, you don't have a smile, you don't have anything. So as an actor, I would sit there during those 6 hours while they were laying that latex on me, and I would try to find head positions that I felt were maybe aggressive or inquisitive or emotionally charged in some way or another, just so that Tosk would have a personality through this suit, because I thought I wanted people to root for Tosk. I wanted people to like him. And because I felt like if you like him and you want to be a Tosk, then the episode will be successful, because it was that great piece of writing where they turned the what's the prime directive on its head, because Tosk, O'Brien helps Tosk sort of in violation of the prime directive, and only because he finds him to be a compassionate being. I mean, everybody wants Tosk to want to be free, and Tosk sort of teaches the Federation, "You don't get it, man. I got the best gig possible. Every second I'm alive, I'm winning." Because he was the ultimate fox in the ultimate fox hunt. So I was really lucky that was a fantastic piece of writing, coupled with a fantastic director. And then I was so excited to be on Star Trek that I managed to get that character through that suit. So I've always really been proud of Tosk, because it was a first effort by me on television, and also an incredibly difficult makeup.
And that's amazing that was your first television appearance. But I had heard that after your appearance as Tosk, that you were promised a less makeup-intensive role in future Trek episodes. Is there any truth to that? I mean, right away you were cast as Nivek in TNG's Face of the Enemy.
They came to me and asked me if I wanted to audition for Next Generation while I was playing Tosk. And I said, absolutely, sure, I would love to do that. And they brought me the script for Face of the Enemy. So I was looking at that script while I was studying my script for Tosk on set. There was no promise about a less intensive makeup. It was just, I was just really flattered that they would do that. And all the crew guys were making fun of me, saying, "Oh, wow, you're going to," and I didn't by any stretch of the imagination think it was a lock that I was going to get that part. Because, I mean, there's just so many talented actors in LA. I remember going to that audition and seeing a bunch of great people. And I shot till, I think it was 3 a.m. And well, I got out of the makeup at 3 a.m. We shot till about 1 a.m. And then it took about 2 hours to get out of the Tosk makeup. So I think I got to bed about 3 at home. And my audition was the next morning at 9:30 at the Paramount lot. And I had, of the 8-day shoot, Tosk worked 7 of them. So I had that day free. So that's where they dropped my audition. So I had to get up, go down there and do my audition. And I just remember seeing a lot of people who I recognized in the lobby and thinking, wow, this is, this is another big audition. And then I was fortunate enough to get that one. So I worked back-to-back weeks. There's that guy. And it was a much less intensive makeup. The guy I remember and they didn't know that I had done Deep Space Nine the week before. Most of the Next Gen people, they weren't aware of it. So the makeup guy kind of said, "So, how do you like sitting in a makeup chair for 2.5 hours?" Easy. Like it was really hard for me, I just smiled at him and said, "Brother, I spent 6.5 per day just last week on Deep Space Nine. So I don't want to embarrass you, but I can do this one standing on my head."
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun though, because that was the one where they made Marina up to be a Romulan. So we would sit there in the morning and, crack a dawn and get in the makeup. And, Marina wasn't super pleased to be putting it on, but, good grief, she wore it well. Talk about a beautiful Romulan, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That Greek blood,
There you go, I guess.
Yeah, and they couldn't have done a better casting job with you there and with Carolyn Seymour as Commander Taurus.
Oh, Carolyn is just wonderful. What a great actress. She's got multiple Trek episodes too. I think maybe 4 or 5. I don't remember how many, but she's a really, really, really great human being and a really good actress. And the director's name was Gabrielle Beaumont. And so Gabrielle was a Brit, and Marina was a Brit, and Carolyn was a Brit. So they had this little Brit club that I was not in.
Oh.
But it was really
British
really
women.
it was another fun episode. And again, I got really lucky. It was really well written.
Well written, well acted. Both of those episodes, Captive Pursuit and Face of the Enemy, are two of my favorites from each respective series.
One cool thing that happened with that is here in the States, they used to air Deep Space Nine and Next Generation back to back on the local whoever was showing the Paramount shows in those days. And in some cities, just because of the way that the editing worked and stuff, my episode of Captive Pursuit and my episode of Next Generation aired the same night. So I like to tell people that in Seattle, Washington, for example, where I'd been doing a lot of theater, for one night, I was the absolute king of Star Trek. I was the lead guest star on both Deep Space Nine and Next Generation on the same night. And most people didn't know they were watching the same actor other than the people who I told. So that was again, another kind of unique and really fun aspect of these first couple of Star Trek jobs that I did, was just the fun of that kind of stuff. For me as an actor coming off the stage, to be able to call up my friends and say, hey, turn your TV on tonight and you won't recognize me in one, but you'll recognize me in the other. And then they'd call back and say, oh, I knew it was you. And, all of that stuff. But it was really a treat. And, so that was it was really, really, really an enjoyable experience.
That's really interesting, because I went through your IMDb kind of profile and seeing what you've been in, and you've been in a bunch of stuff, and a lot of it I've seen, but you wouldn't necessarily know because either makeup or kind of your character. It's just really interesting that one human can portray so many different characters, and that you wouldn't necessarily know. Like a couple of weeks ago, I watched Call of the Wild, and I was like, I was watching Harrison Ford most of the time, following him around, but like you were in that also, and I was like, that's amazing. I know this guy because listeners, Ria and I had the amazing luck to hang out with Scott at Destination Star Trek in Birmingham last year. And Scott, tell us about, it was your birthday when you arrived. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was my birthday. I flew into my birthday. I was on the plane, and we were leaving the States and heading out over the water, and I had a thought in my mind, and I thought, hey, what time is it? What time zone am I in? Where are we? And I asked the stewardess, and she said it's I can't remember, 12:30 or something. I said, oh, it's officially my birthday then. I think I'll have a vodka tonic, please. And so she brought it to me, and I got there, and it was, and I ran into Joe in the bar, and there was a gaggle of folks there, and Shocking. They one thing led to another, and they figured out it was my birthday, and they started to buy me birthday beers, and we wound up sitting there for quite a while and having a great sort of initial meeting. And also a few days later, I was doing a panel. I did a few panels at that one, just talking about playing masked characters, and I was doing it, and oh, no, it was the pose for a photo with Scott MacDonald thing. And I was standing in there, and they brought me a birthday cake.
Nice.
Yeah, which was just a really kind of unique and fun treat. I just thought, oh, my goodness, this is really cool. That was a classy move. It was just, it's a family, the Trek family. There's a lot of, there's that whole sort of Saturday Night Live take off where Shatner makes fun of the fans and all of that kind of stuff. And that vibe is, that trends a lot. But my experiences have just been that it's a really wide swath of human beings who love this stuff. And it's always a pleasure to, sit and talk to fans. It's just a great, unique group of people that, and it's a gigantic group of people. I mean, I'm continually amazed. The first convention I ever went to, late 90s, I didn't feel like I had any business being there. I mean, in my mind, I thought Star Trek convention, that's Sulu and Nimoy and, Shatner and, and I walked into that room and, Adam West and Burt Ward were there from Batman, and Walter Koenig, and I think Nichelle Nichols was there. And, I mean, I was just kind of in awe of these people myself personally. So, sitting down and putting pictures out and signing autographs, I had that feeling like the guys in Wayne's World, we're not worthy, not worthy. And I'd only played, I think, 3 at that time. But I got, I got a bunch of letters from people who said, do you know you should do Star Trek episodes because you've done 3 characters? And it didn't even occur to me to even do them at that time. So I started to scout around and ask people how they worked and stuff like that. But that was, again, just another sort of unique aspect of being on Star Trek.
That's so cool.
Especially your first 2 episodes were so great and fantastic, and you played 2 really great characters that were really separate from each other too. Tosk had such a juvenile kind of feel to him, where, as you said, the wonder and all of everything, and then in Face of the Enemy, very confident about who he is, and this is what we're going to do, and we're moving forward. They were just fantastic. But my question is, so one reason Star Trek has such a devoted fan base, as you were talking about, is the impact it has on people's lives. I know Dan Davidson of Trek Geeks has shared his story with you of how Captive Pursuit saved his life. Are there any roles you've played that have impacted your life? And are there any shows, Star Trek or otherwise, that have impacted your life?
Yeah, that was a pretty stunning moment for me. I'm just going to retell that story a little bit. A gentleman came up to me, wanted to get an autographed Tosk photo at a convention, and told me in no uncertain terms and in deadly seriousness that Tosk saved his life, that he was sitting with the thought of killing himself, and he decided to watch Star Trek, and something about the way Tosk lived inspired him to stick around. And I mean, imagine that for a moment from an actor's point of view. I mean, it's that's an amazing thing to me. I was just speechless. Literally, I had no idea what to say other than man, I'm glad you're still here. I had one other girl come up to me one time, and she was almost in tears at a convention. She was so wound up, and that was, and I have this unique thing that happens at conventions because I've been mostly masked, so I have this anonymity. So a lot of times I'm sitting at my table with nothing to do because people aren't aware that I'm the character. They walk up to the table and look at the picture and say, "Wait, is this you?" And I say, "Yeah." "Is this you?" "Yeah." "Is this you?" "Yeah." "Oh, I didn't even know you were here." And I think, well, I am.
Okay.
Hi, welcome. And so there's the great thing about it is that because I was so anonymous, I got to do a lot of characters because they could have me back on Trek because nobody knew it was me. I mean, literally played back-to-back episodes of 2 shows, and they aired them the same night. So the separation was clean enough that the network didn't say, well, don't show him the same night on the same shows. So this girl, she says, she was all wound up and really emotional. And she said, "I need to tell you that this character," and she points at Tosk, "is my favorite episode of all Star Trek episodes ever, and I said, my goodness, that's flattering. I'm a Star Trek fan, and there's been an awful lot of really good ones. I said, I mean, come on, better than David Warner and Jean-Luc Picard going at it in, as a Cardassian when Picard's getting tortured, or when Picard's Worf's Shadish, or, I'm thinking all of my favorites, I am Locutus of Borg, I just about fell out of my chair, I loved it. And, so, but she was totally serious about it, and it was incredibly flattering. And then she got really choked up and she said, what I'm going to try to tell you is my second favorite episode ever of Star Trek is Hippocratic Oath on Deep Space Nine, the Jim Hadar, who's off the Ketracel White. And I didn't know till today that it was the same actor. And she started crying.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, that stuff is the stuff that's impactful. In answer to your question, is as a performer, that means a lot, right? I mean, the obviously the writing, I'm not saying I did it, the writing is fantastic. Again, that's another episode where I really got lucky. Hippocratic Oath is a really good piece of writing. And, I'm the first Jim Hadar with a conscience. Once again, Tosk was the first creature to come through the wormhole. Nivek is a Romulan who's working for Spock's reunification for Vulcan. So the Romulans are already an uptight race. So, this guy's like double uptight because he's running a spy game on the spy people, and then I got to play Goran'Agar. So in answer to that question, that's the type of thing that is a thrill. And also just like, I get a kick out of it. Like, I have, Star Trek cards that my characters are on. I was a baseball card collector when I was a kid. So, I kind of get a rush out of that kind of stuff. I have a couple of action figures, for goodness sake. Tosk has an action figure, and so does Commander Dolim. And just recently, a friend who lives in Vancouver, Canada, sent me, they did a series of Star Trek stamped heroes and villains type of thing, where I don't remember who everybody's with, but each captain of the ship is with sort of their arch enemy from the series. So there's a Shatner with Khan, and there's, I can't remember who Picard's with, but Scott Bakula is on the card, and I'm behind him as Commander Dolim from Enterprise. So I'm on this stamp from Canada. Nobody knows it's me. It's this guy in a mask, but I know it's me.
Wow.
So it's those kinds of things that are gratifying and a little bit of a rush because, I was a legitimate Star Trek fan. I watched it when I was a boy. I watched the very first episode ever. My dad made me take a nap so that I could stay up late, and I watched the very first episode ever of Star Trek when it aired in the United States. It was the Salt Sucker episode with McCoy, and my mom was really mad because she thought it was a little too scary for. I don't remember. I think I was third grade or something.
Wow.
So who knows? Maybe that was maybe that was the genesis of me wanting to be a Trek guy.
Was that love at first sight then?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I loved it. And then of course, afternoon reruns when I was in high school. We were always quoting. Shatner and what was the guy's name? Kang, the Klingon Kang, who was
yes,
Michael Ansara. And here's the thing about Michael Ansara, and if you don't mind, this is kind of a fun roundabout Trek stuff story. We used to copy Michael Ansara's voice because he had that great line where he says, something to the effect of, "Very funny, Captain Kirk, but I'm not so sure you will be laughing when I hack you to bits." So we would say that to each other in high school. In flow, it's like somebody, slice you, insult you or something, and you'd say that back to him. So cut 2 years later, I get a phone call. They're looking for me from Paramount. They want me to audition for a part for Deep Space Nine, but it requires a whole bunch of makeup again, which I had done once already as Tosk. And the story that I was told later was that they were looking for someone who could handle the makeup to play Goran'Agar because there was a lot of dialogue. And they were worried about the thick makeup and then that amount of dialogue, becoming a problem for the actor. And Rene Auberjonois, I'm told, said to the executive producers, and Rene was directing the episode, who played Odo. He directed that particular episode. It was his first one that he directed. He said, what about the guy who played Tosk? So they started to look for me, and I was on this other job, and I was kind of hard to get a hold of. And I went in to meet with them the next week, and they said, this is the situation. It's a lot of makeup. We wanted to ask if you felt like you wanted to try it again. I was, of course, really excited and said absolutely. And they were sort of describing the character for me. And I thought, I'd love to play that for you. And I started to think about, what am I going to do so that it doesn't sound like Tosk or sound like Nivek? So I did a Michael Ansara impersonation. Goran'Agar talks like Michael Ansara. He talks like in that distinct pattern that Michael Ansara spoke when he was Kang. And so I did that.
Wow.
Then, and I was really happy with how it turned out, how Goran'Agar turned out. You know, there's a lot of pathos in that episode. You feel sorry for that soldier trapped on that planet who's going to have to go eradicate his own men so that they don't die from withdrawals slowly. About 2 years later, I was out in California where I live, and the Screen Actors Guild Hospital is kind of out near there. And I was at this restaurant, and I was sitting in there, and I looked over, and Michael Ansara was sitting in a chair, and he had one of those oxygen tank things on, and he was not in perfect health at that time, and I sat there kind of eating my lunch and trying to decide whether or not I should do it or not. So I finally walked over and I said, Michael Ansara, I want to shake your hand, and I want to thank you for all the performances over the years that I saw you in, and Star Trek, and I remember him from Wild Wild West and all the TV from the 60s. And he was married to Barbara Eden for a while, who was I Dream of Jeannie. So there was all of this cultural stuff with him. And I told him the Goran'Agar story. I told him I did this impersonation of you, and he took notes and wrote down what the episode was and said, I'm going to get my wife to find it for me so that I can watch it. So that was kind of fun. But the other thing, in the interim, before I met Michael, I did the Klingon CD-ROM live action game. And Michael and the actor who you mentioned and all those guys came back and played Klingons as themselves. Kang came back, and when they gave me my wardrobe to play Quaylon, they handed me my coat, and I looked at the name tag on it, and it said Ansara.
Wow.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I just loved it. I just thought, oh my God, I'm wearing Michael Ansara's Next Generation Klingon outfit, and then I met him, and I told him that part of the story too when I met him,
Goosebumps.
So anyway, that's kind of the fun, unique parts of. There's some interesting serendipity for me with Star Trek that that you don't get to relay through your characters or relay when you're sitting and signing an autograph. So I just thought that was kind of a fun story.
That's wonderful. And that's wonderful that you are a lifelong Star Trek fan. And then, what you were saying earlier about sitting for 6 hours in the makeup chair and, thinking of how you could use your head tilt to portray Tosk. And then what an effect that had. I mean, that literally, the work that you put into that character saved lives. And then I just rewatched Face of the Enemy this morning, actually, just to refresh my memory. And your subtleties there, your expressions, your eyes, just the little things that portray that tension
Nivek
of the spying on the spies. It's the difference that Michael Ansara made in your life, you're making in other people's lives. And yeah, you wonder why we have such a great Star Trek fan community. There's real meat to these episodes.
Yeah, it is. There's pathos, there's emotion. I mean, I remember really being emotionally involved when Jean-Luc Picard became Worf's Shadish and went down to Klingon and was his right-hand man and totally and completely embraced the role, and he had to give up being Worf's captain in order to do it. And I just thought, this is brilliant writing, where these two guys' roles are now reversed, and Picard is so honored to be asked and understands and embraces this role. And I just thought that's the kind of writing that that works in any genre. You're just openly rooting for these people because, you've had a long relationship with them. You've developed a relationship with them. that's the interesting thing about being a guest star and appearing in one and having it have some resonance. There's a lot of gratification just in that. I mean, Tosk was one episode, and he's, he's a very popular character over the years. I mean, I'm always surprised at the number of people who walk up and say, "Oh my God, this episode right here! Oh wow!" It's very flattering. It's always a pleasure. People are kind of apologetic when they come up, sorry to bother you and things. And I think, look, I'm at this convention because of this, so I'm happy to talk about it.
It's awesome. And it's really obvious that you were a fan before, because you keep on dropping kind of deep cuts into the Star Trek universe. Like when I introduced your Star Trek credits at the beginning and your Jem'Hadar character, Goran'Agar, and then you've said it since I said it, and you said it correctly, Goran'Agar. And I'm like, oh, that's how you say it. I misspoke. I think
that's okay.
No, that's cool. It's cool that you have this knowledge, and when you were speaking about playing Tosk earlier and saying we've never seen this character before, he's the first alien to come through the wormhole. You obviously get the script. How much information did you get about the character?
Not a lot, other than he's the ultimate fox in the ultimate fox hunt. And I didn't know any better. They would say, we kind of want you to do it this way. And that was my first guest star audition, and I was coming out of the theater that's very, cohabitating. You're talking about all of these things. There's lots of discussion and interchanges and compromises and things. And television doesn't really work that way. But Scott MacDonald didn't know that in that room. I would just say, "Oh no, absolutely not. Can't. No, there's no way. There's no way." They said, "Look at him. Look at this makeup. We want him to be aggressive and meaner." And I had an idea, and I don't know why. I just thought, no, I think this guy, whatever planet he lands on, he gets a sense of what he's up against. And they were kind of fighting with me a little bit about it, and the producers were. And I said, I don't think so. He's an adaptoid. And if he's threatening, he's not going to get what he needs out of these people. He needs to figure out how to get on the same page with them so that he can get what he needs in order to survive. I mean, he's naive enough that he goes to the computer, accesses it, and says, "Show me where the weapons are stored." Even though he's an alien, he thinks, just tell me where the stuff is that I might be able to use to stay alive. That's his existence. He's a fox. And, and they were saying, well, and I said, look, if he landed on Kronos, his blood would be up. He would be aggressive. He would know, this is how I achieve what I need to here. I'll defeat someone in a match, and I'll get what I need in order to move on. His ship is disabled. He needs help. He's encountered O'Brien. He encounters empathy with O'Brien immediately. Let me help you. We're in the Federation. We help. So he takes that empathy and he sort of tries to utilize it to stay alive. He doesn't want to harm anyone, but he also needs to get away because he knows the hunters are coming. And he tries to warn those guys that the hunters are coming, but they won't listen to him. But he can't tell too much because that breaks the code. So it was just that great writing of that. So they just explained to me that he was the first creature ever to come through the wormhole, that he was the ultimate fox in the ultimate fox hunt, and that he needed the Federation's help to get away. So I sort of fought for the way I thought he ought to be. And luckily for me, Corey Allen was in the room, great method acting, and they put me through the ringer. I had 3 separate auditions where they kept questioning me and kept putting me through, jumping me over these hurdles and everything. And I just assumed that was normal. I've never experienced anything like it since. And I don't mean it in any self-aggrandizing way. It was just, I just was coming out of the theater and was defending my idea of a character. And they were kind of trying to steer it a certain way, and they kept leaning me certain, and I'd give them what they wanted. I'd do the audition that way. And then they'd ask me, how do you feel about that? And I'd say, well, I feel like it can be halfway that intense, because he needs these people to help him. And we got done. We were near the end of the 3rd audition, and Corey had moved across the table and was reading with me, which has never happened to me since, where the director read with me ever, because he was trying to help me. And he agreed with me, but they were arguing with him a little bit too. And we read some scene, and Corey said, I want you to read it the way you would do it. And it was, I'm pretty sure it was Tosk's speech to O'Brien that I'm Tosk, I'm the hunted, I live to outwit the hunters for another day. That whole speech about what his essence is. So I read it the way I thought it would be. And I finished, and Corey let it sit for a minute. And it was a lot like I ended up reading it when I played him. And Corey looked over at those guys and said, in an angry voice with a clenched fist and rosy red cheeks because he was mad, and said, does anybody else have any more questions for this fine actor? It was an incredible experience. I mean, even if I knew leaving the room, even if I didn't get the part, that I had done my job as an actor, and which was just come in with an idea of your character being done and defend it. Sometimes they'll change it. They'll say, no, you're off track. It needs to be this or whatever, you know. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I was naive enough to think, look, I know Star Trek really well, and I think it should be this way.
That's interesting. I wonder if that would have changed if you weren't a fan before, if you had no experience of Star Trek, if you would maybe have just gone in and gone, okay, yes, sir, no, sir.
Absolutely, for a certainty.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I just had this really definitive idea of how he should be. And with the Romulan, it wasn't the same for Nivek. I just knew that he was, like I said, a spy within a spy. So I just played him with some real intensity, that he didn't want to be outed.
Since you were a big Star Trek fan, were you actively seeking a Star Trek role, or were you just trying to put food on the table? And
totally putting food on the table. I was doing a play called The Kentucky Cycle at the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles, and they invited me to come in and audition, and I just thought, oh wow, Star Trek. And that's what I mean. They were finding theater people. And also in that play with Gregory Itzin, who's played a ton of stuff on Star Trek. You guys can look him up. And Randy Oglesby was in that play, The Kentucky Cycle, with me. And we were in it from Seattle to LA to Washington, D.C. to Broadway together. So when I walked into the room, when I got cast as Commander Dolim on Enterprise for season 3, I walked into the room and Randy was sitting there. I was so happy to see my friend. And there was a lot of doubt about that particular season because they weren't sure what they were going to do, because they were doing a little bit darker version of Star Trek because of the towers falling. So there was an onus on America about that kind of thing. And, if you think about that story, that's sort of what happens in the end of season 2 of Enterprise. A weapon destroys a bunch of Florida out of nowhere, and they send a ship out to see what did that. And it turns out to be me and my guys. And Randy was, of course, sort of Oppenheimer-esque. He's the bomb maker, and I'm the guy who would like to use it on Earth immediately. And he doesn't want to do that. He has a conscience. So we're at odds about that. And that was the early writing. Just the Xindi Council was just the early writing of all of us sitting and sort of discussing it. There were a lot of episodes where we discussed. And the writers came in one day, to their credit, Brandon Braga and a lot of those guys came in, and they said, look, we're not positive where we're going with this yet, but we know these scenes are they're just laying there a little bit. They're kind of political. We're sorry about that, but we're sort of trying to get the building blocks of what we're doing, words to that effect. And, whatever you guys feel like you want to do to enhance it or whatever, that kind of stuff. And I, knowing Randy really well and having worked with him a lot in Kentucky Cycle, I just said to him, I just leaned over to Randy and said, how about this? How about my race hates your race? And Randy nodded his head and said, okay. And we didn't change any dialogue. I just spoke to him in belittling tones, dismissively. And Randy, such a fine actor, just reacted uncomfortably to the way I was speaking to him, but he's trying to maintain his decorum because he's a scientist who needs his financing and who needs to keep his hands on this weapon that he knows, and I'm the guy who wants to take it and use it immediately. So they wrote right into that vibe for Randy and I. They wrote right into it. And we kept having these strange altercations and these weird little instances where we were against each other, and they started to build Dolim as, this killing machine. And Randy, of course, gets a conscience and sort of sides with the Federation and has a lot of episodes where he's on the same page with Bakula. And Randy would call me at home and say, what's going to happen. You're going to kill me. You're going to kill me. It's coming. And this we're like in episode 6 or something, and the season's moving on, and we're talking to each other on the phone and on the set. And sure enough, those scripts arrived in the mail, and Randy called me, and he was kind of laughing, and he said, I told you. And Manny Cotto wrote that fantastic episode where I corner him and lecture him about how he betrayed our people and that 18 of my men were killed because of what he did. And then I take him out, and I mean, you'd never seen anything like that in Star Trek before. I gut that guy like a fish and hold the knife up over his face and tell him I'm going to go find his wife and kid. I mean, that was really, I treasured being able to say that stuff. And it was a great writer named Manny Cotto who wrote that episode. Yeah. But I got to do a lot of great villainous stuff. And if you can't be the captain of the Enterprise, then, you want to be the villain who he's fighting in hand-to-hand combat in the final episode of the season, right? And I got to do that, and it was nothing but a joy. I mean, playing Commander Dolim, it was I was ultimate villainy. I was just a scenery chewing villain. I was the Darth Vader of that season, and I had a heck of a lot of fun doing it. A heck of a lot of fun.
That's wonderful. And then the dynamic between those two characters and the way it was sustained throughout the course of the season was just
much to the writer's credit that they picked up on it and wrote right into it. And Randy and I both, I just talked to Randy the other day, and we reminisce about that, those scenes and those opportunities a great deal. On the normal circumstances, there's just the crew people that are there, the camera operator, sound, things like that, maybe, I suppose, with makeup and people, maybe 10 or 15 people. And when we filmed that scene where Dolim was going to kill Degra, there were about 50 people there. And it felt almost like we were doing a little play. People came to see what we would do. And we were, Randy and I both were really flattered by that and humbled by that, because people wanted to come and see what we were going to do. They wanted to watch the end of this beloved. I mean, people were mad. They got letters that they killed Degra, but it was what a treat. I mean, to get to, it's just that this doesn't happen. You don't get to work with your friends like that in that kind of context and detail with any frequency in Hollywood. So it was just, again, this interesting, really serendipitous, positive aspect of Star Trek for me in my life and my career. And not that beautifully either.
Yeah, you don't get to kill your friends often, so how wonderful.
No, of course not. Can I ask about that kind of the synergy between you and other characters, how it comes across on screen? The Enterprise, you as Commander Dolim, but also in like Face of the Enemy, where there's you and Troy and Commander Toreth. That interplay, it's kind of almost like a magical thing that happens. I'm wondering how much of it is script and the writing, how much of it is direction, how much of it is you as actors and the chemistry.
Yeah, it's a great hodgepodge of all of it. Yeah, I mean, I thought Marina was really good in Face of the Enemy. They finally gave her the ball and let her run a little bit with that episode, and she handled it really well. Carolyn is classically trained, incredibly great actress who, she just brought a weight to that Commander Torres that was perfect for that. She's a little arrogant. She's a little annoyed.
Yeah.
She's weary. She's a battle-weary leader. She brings all of this history to this character so that it feels very realistic. And so Nivek's up against it because he's got a really good commanding officer who he's trying to trick. So for me, those scenes, it's not hard to play those scenes when you're working with really talented people. And again, I was very fortunate. Garrett Graham was the hunter. He's done a lot of Star Trek stuff. He's a very good actor. Colm Meaney and I had a great rapport as Tosk and O'Brien together. And another kind of interesting story, when I went back to do Goran'Agar on Deep Space Nine, my makeup call was 5 o'clock in the morning, and then in the 11th hour I get this call, don't come till 9:30 on the first day, which is really odd. I'm thinking, oh, that's unusual. Okay, so I come at 9:30, and most of the cast of Deep Space Nine is in the makeup trailer when I arrive. All of them. Kira and Avery, they're all in there waiting, and everybody came to see what Tosk looked like out of makeup because they had never seen me. I'd gotten there before them and left after them, so they never ever saw me out of my makeup. None of them except Colm Meaney, who went on the Friday that we finished. Colm was really cool and took me out for drinks. There used to be a little bar on the lot at Paramount, and he took me over there, and I sat with him and Corey for a little while, and we just sort of talked about the week that was. And so Colm was the only one who had ever seen me out of the makeup. So that was why they delayed my call, because everybody said, wait a minute, we want to see what he looks like. Yeah, that was just really fun and flattering, and it was just, again, just this kind of unique serendipity of the community that is Star Trek.
Can you tell the truth about why you moved to LA in the first place? It's to be asked to be on Star Trek. Because I know we've all thought, as fans, we've all thought it. Like, I'll go and live, me in Scotland, like millions of miles away. Yeah. I thought I could go and live in LA and maybe they'll ask me to be on Star Trek, having no acting training whatsoever.
Actually, I went down to LA because of the Kentucky cycle to play. It had won the Pulitzer Prize for drama, and we took it to the Mark Taper Forum in LA. So they always say, if you're going to go to LA, go with a venue, and that was a very, very, very impressive venue. It was Robert Jenkins' play. Won the Pulitzer. So there was a gap. We finished Kentucky cycle, and there was about a year before it went east. First we thought we were going to go to Boston. We ended up going to DC and then going to Broadway. That play kind of went backwards. Usually the play starts on Broadway and then comes west.
Yeah.
We did it backwards. We started in Seattle. We went down to LA. And it was in that interim, that year off, where I was kind of in a limbo. I didn't know if I was going to go back up to Seattle and do theater or what I was going to do, because the play was on pause. And that was when I booked Tosk and Nivek. And then I also got the movie Fire in the Sky, which is an alien abduction movie. And that was a Paramount movie with James Garner and D.B. Sweeney, and Robert Patrick was just coming off The Terminator. That was a really fortunate job to get. I filmed that in the state of Oregon for a bunch of weeks. So I did 2 movies and 2 Star Trek episodes in that interim while we waited for the play to pick up and then go east. And right when I got back, I was cast on Voyager as a human for the first time ever as a human. And the idea of Rollins, when I was told, when they asked me to do it, I kind of wasn't that interested in playing a guy who wasn't doing much, because I'd been fortunate enough to play larger stuff on Star Trek. So I thought, well, I'll just wait and do a guest star or something on this one. But they said that they thought that he would be more like O'Brien from The Next Generation, that he would be a recurring guy who you would see on the bridge and stuff like that. So I did the pilot episode, and I've been told by people who are more informed than I am about this type of stuff. I was told that Rollins was the only non-lead to run the bridge in Star Trek. He gives me the bridge. He says, you have the con, Mr. Rollins, when they all beam down to deal with the aliens down there. I'm on the bridge. She keeps reporting, how's it going up there? And I'm running the bridge alone. And then Rollins just disappeared. He wasn't in any more episodes. And there was actually, I went to some conventions, and for a little while there was a group of ladies, I think they were from Texas, and they had great big buttons that they wore that said, "Bring back Rollins." There was about 40 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was this "Bring back Rollins" movement at this convention, which I got a kick out of,
That's a proper campaign.
So I was in that, and I worked with Geneviève Bujold.
Oh, wow, yeah. Who was originally supposed to be Captain Janeway?
She was originally going to be the captain. The only footage of her, and you can find it's on YouTube and stuff. You'll see me in there. I was in all of the scenes she shot. But it was about a day and a half before she said, "This ain't for me."
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's history, isn't it? Wow.
So, Scott, can you tell us about the tone of the set on each of the shows you appeared on? Were things more gentle on TNG versus Voyager, or and did you feel welcomed as a guest?
For me, I did. Deep Space Nine was in its infancy, so it was not a well-oiled machine. Things were kind of slow. They were a little slow on the uptake. It wasn't as efficient there. But that was my first one, and it was so grueling that I wasn't super aware that things might be going slower. Plus, it was my first guest star, so I'd been on a few sets, but I didn't really know how efficient things were. So I just assumed, this is how Star Trek works. Then I moved over to the Next Generation, which was a fine-tuned machine. And in a weird turn of events, they tell you the night before, okay, tomorrow we're going to shoot these scenes. So those are the lines you look at. So they called me, a production assistant called me and said, these are the scenes for tomorrow, whatever, scene 26 and 18 or whatever. So I learned all those lines and got to set and got in my makeup and got down there. And then when I got there, we weren't doing those scenes.
Oh.
We were doing this super complicated scene where I had all this techno babble and I didn't know it very well. So I was feeling really nervous because I was kind of letting the team down on my first day, and it wasn't really going very well. And Gabrielle Beaumont was a real taskmaster of a director, nothing like Corey Allen, a great director, but just a different style of director. Just get the shot, let's get out. She was keeping time, making time. And because time is money. And I happened to mention to Marina kind of quietly, I said, I haven't done enough television to know, but I got the wrong pages last night. And she sat bolt upright and said, so did I. She put her hands up and said, everybody stop. Scott and I got the wrong pages given to us. I learned scene 26 and 18. He learned scene 26 and 18. We're not shooting those scenes. He and I are going away for a half an hour to run our lines together, so this will go better. And that's just how it's going to be, or words to that effect. I was pretty impressed. We just went and learned those lines so that would go a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah.
And then it did. And of course, the next day we did the scenes that I'd already learned. So we were lickety split. We were on it. And then I was kind of on my game. But that's a real nerve-wracking thing when the thing I say about being a guest star actor is you're kind of like a house painter. You're welcome in there. They want you to do really good work. They want you to be precise and do a really great job. And you can actually kind of eat your meal with the people who live there. But as soon as you're done, please take your equipment and get out of here. So it's a week of that, and so that was a unique turn of events because they were a much more well-oiled machine. In answer to your question, way, way, way better. And I was in season 3 of Enterprise, and they were already up and running, so that was a smooth moving machine too.
Luckily for you, Marina, she'd been there for a while and could defend you.
True, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, Scott, is there any question that you never get asked that you wish you would get asked?
No, not really. I mean, I don't know. I feel like over the decades, which amazes me, of doing conventions, and I mean, Tosk, I think, was filmed in 1992. I walked into that first convention and looked at guys from Batman when I was a kid watching TV, Adam West and Burt Ward, and the guys from Adam 12, and Frank Gorshin, who was the Riddler on Batman, was there that day. And now I'm them. People walk into the room, and I was on Next Generation in 1992 and Deep Space Nine in 1992, and I don't even want to try to add that up. Luckily, I'm an actor, so I can't do math. But that was a long time ago now. It's amazing to me that it's, I think 2004 for Enterprise.
So you may be
and
right,
that's a ways back there now, So it's interesting to have these little time bombs that live forever. Not really, because I don't feel like there's been a lot I haven't been asked at conventions and things like that. I am sometimes surprised. Someone will walk up and say a line to me from something I did. Like one guy came up and he was blind and he was walking with his friend, and I said something to him, and he stopped and he turned and he had his friend come over and found the edge of my table, and he said, "Are you by any chance Hatfield from the 57th?" And that was a one-day guest star I did on Space Above and Beyond, where I was a military guy. And so, I mean, that kind of stuff is the stuff that flavors it for me. It's the salt and pepper of what we do. That was, I mean, it's possible that he researched me and he was gaming me or something, but, I was really taking, just the fact that one-day guest star was important to him at all, was a cool thing. I mean, that's the interesting thing about fans. You never know what's gonna ignite that fuse for them.
Okay, Scott, you have the most Scottish name, like in the history of all Scottish names, I think. Scott is very Scottish, and MacDonald, M-A-C Donald, is like super Scottish. So do you have any Scottish heritage?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. All the way back to the Lord of the Isles. Do you know the Lord of the Isles?
I'm from here and I don't, so you're going to shame me.
You should find the book, The Lord of the Isles.
Okay.
And read it. But I'm descended from the MacDonald clan all the way back. My dad researched it all the way back to Castle Tioram in Scotland, where there's still rubble from the original MacDonald castle. And he's actually stood on those grounds and sent me some pictures from there, and he's thrilled. I personally have not been to Scotland yet. I'm hoping that I can sometime, maybe
do it.
It'll work out that I can maybe head over there for a convention or something and then tour around a little.
Destination Star Trek, whenever the next one will be.
Exactly.
Do you want? You'll be more than welcome to.
If we can all just get together again sometime.
You'd be more than welcome. That'd be awesome fun.
Absolutely.
And now, like, we're going to clash you as friends. Like, oh yeah, we're friends with Scott MacDonald, very nonchalantly. It's going to happen. So since you've got so much Scottish heritage, there's a little bit of a quiz that you are required to take part in. It's not optional. So I've got 5 questions for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
It's very exciting. What is the capital city? It's an easy one. Of Scotland.
Oh my goodness, a quiz. I'm melting down.
Starts with an E.
The capital of Scotland?
Yes.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Edinburgh.
It is the capital.
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I didn't think it was.
Oh, everybody thinks Glasgow is the capital.
Yeah, I was thinking Glasgow, but Edinburgh, I always think of the Edinburgh Theatre Festival.
Oh, yeah, the Fringe, yeah. Okay, that's fine. You've got 4 more questions.
Oh, for one.
Yes. You might not know this either. Who is Scotland's most famous poet?
Most famous poet?
Yeah, long dead. Wrote Auld Lang Syne. World famous.
I probably won't be able to pull that one either. I was actually, I had to write all those names down this morning for all the directors and actors I worked with, because I was thinking I don't want to get on here and forget their names, which sometimes happens.
Okay. Robert Burns.
Oh, Burns is?
Yeah. See,
okay.
you know the answers.
Can't think. I have a. There's a great Scottish poem, and I'm blanking on his name right now, and I regret it because I love the poem, and it's a kind of an ode, and I've read it at a handful of funerals, and maybe I'll email it to you when I find it.
That'd be cool. Okay, question 3. What does "I'll gie you a skelpit lug" mean? I'll gie you a skelpit lug. Skelpit and lug.
I'll take another pint, sir.
No, although that's a good guess. It means I'm going to slap you on the ear, which is not something I'd ever do to you, Scott, because you're like a famous actor.
That's a unique one. I'm not thinking I'm going to be using that one. Hopefully,
probably not. You might get arrested. Okay, if I said to you, "Och wisht," what would I be asking you to do? Och wisht, Scott MacDonald. Och wisht.
Sit down.
Oh no. Well, okay, but be quiet, which is as similar to sit down. We'll give you that.
Which is no good for a podcast.
No, not at all. Okay.
See, I got the answer wrong, but I managed to get a win in there.
True.
That's the Nivek there.
Do you know what? Make a loss of one. Absolutely.
There you
And
go.
last question. Do you know who the current First Minister of Scotland is? Our
No.
leader.
I do not know.
Okay. Her name is Nicola Sturgeon.
Say that again.
Nicola Sturgeon.
You got an accent, you know.
I have been told.
We know.
Listeners like it. It's true. Scott, for those 5 questions, you scored full marks. Well done. And do you know what? From us to you, we are going to bestow on you honorary Scotthood, which isn't anything official, but
I'll take it.
Please have it. It's something I like to do with our special guests that are on. And I have no power in terms of government to award these things, but
Lord Somerled, the Lord of the Isles, is who you want to look up.
I'm going to write that down. Lord Summerland.
Somerled, Lord Somerled, the Lord of the Isles. You'll be fascinated. He's the guy when the Vikings came in and took Scotland and ran out the king, he went and hid in Ireland. Lord Somerled came back with Irish mercenaries and Scotsmen who were willing to fight and took Scotland back from the Vikings, reestablished Scottish rule. He's the guy who did it, and he ruled for 50 years after that. And he's the reason that Scotland is Scotland, and it isn't an extension of Norway.
It's good to know. That's a thing about living in Scotland or wherever you happen to live. There's a tendency not to know the history of where you lived or where you come from. So it's always interesting to find out new stuff.
I'm one half Norwegian and one half Scottish. My dad was full-blood Scot. Both his parents were Scottish, and my mom was full-blood Norwegian. So I've got that Viking blood and that Highlander warrior blood in me. So,
and now the next time you two are together, Scott, you
That's
can
right.
quiz Joe.
I'm going to come up with some
obscure
Americanisms and see if he knows what they mean.
Oh, I'm good. Do you know what? I regale our listeners with my stellar knowledge of American history and geography. And listeners know that Scott is originally from the great state of Montana. And interestingly, Montana is named after the famous pop star Hannah Montana. That's true.
Little bit of Scottish lore there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not all made up at all.
Yeah.
Scott, thanks for joining us today. And this has been like a while in the making, this episode of Galaxy Glass. I think as I mentioned earlier, you, Ria, and I all met at Destination Star Trek last October.
Yes.
And we're coming on a year since that.
Yeah, amazingly.
Yeah, and we've all made it through 2020 so far. So
oof, knock wood, huh?
So let's hope for a better 2021.
I'll say.
Scott, we normally ask guests where listeners can contact you online. Is that something that you do?
I was roundly chastised by a friend of mine for not having my Instagram set up for this. And I don't have it set up yet, but I hope to do one fairly soon. I just am kind of a tech lazy guy. I'm a little bit of a clodhopper when it comes to learning how to do it. And I got my son here who's an IT tech. He helped me get this Zoom up, or I never would have been here. So yeah, so I am acting when I'm speaking in technobabble on Star Trek. It's all Greek to me, Ria.
And in Greece, we say it's all Chinese to me. And yes, I am a Pac-Led when it comes to the technical arts as well. So.
But it's been a pleasure. I thank you for the journey here.
Thank you so much, Scott. You have been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. And thanks to your son for
Colin
his
MacDonald, by the way.
Another really Scottish name. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
My gosh.
There's a Colin MacDonald in my family back something like 480 years.
Wow.
Yeah. We're not fooling around.
We're probably related.
My dad was really into it. I just found, he passed away last year, and I found an incredible, before, internet genealogy stuff. My dad had a letters and things that he got where he was contacting relatives and was putting it all together himself. It was just fascinating to read, typed out. So dad was into it. Dad was into it.
Wow.
And he knows we go all the way back to Lord Somerled, the Lord of the Isles,
Very
and
cool.
his son, Donald, who is, of course, his son is MacDonald, so which is son of. So that's where we come from. And there was Angus, and I'm forgetting the other one, but there were 3 sons, and we descend from Donald in our family. And they were classic Highland warriors. They tried killing each other, tried to take the throne from each other. I think Somerled was murdered by his own sons, they think, so that they could get the throne. So, welcome to Scotland.
Yeah, we don't. This was back a while ago. We don't tend to try and kill each other. Yeah. I've never tried to overthrow my dad. Ever.
Joe is not that tough.
No, excuse me. Yeah.
Be careful, he'll give you a skilpet lug.
Scott, thanks again. It's been amazing talking to you, and just all those little nuggets of like kind of behind the scenes and your inspiration for different characters, and how I'm tying together your Scottish heritage has allowed you to portray Klingons and members of the Zindi warrior cast. So
that's it.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very nice. Thank you very much, my friends.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for your time.
Cool.
All right. A pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. All of you, be well, live long and prosper.
Thank you so much.
You too.
Okay. Take care.
Will
See ya.
do.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Well, listeners, that was a great interview with Scott MacDonald, who's just such a lovely, genuine guy. And you've heard it here first that he's a proper Star Trek fan and dropped in some deep knowledge about the whole franchise, so that's great to know. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show and hope you'll comment on our United Federation of Podcast Facebook page. Just search UFP Earth on Facebook and like the page. You're welcome to start conversations with us or add any general Star Trek info you want to share with the group.
If you'd like to send us an email, you can email the network at contact@ufp.earth, and we might read your email on the show.
Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcasts with our master feed by searching United Federation of Podcasts. This way you won't miss any of our fine shows like Franchise Fatigue, Always Hold On to Smallville, Always Hold On to Arrow, General Quarters, Mickey's Marvels, Infinite Diversities, and Trek Pod.
So Ria, how many times a day do you practice at the phaser targeting range?
Oh, first thing in the morning, right after lunch, and then before I go to bed, I find that it's pretty relaxing.
What's your highest score?
Oh, my highest score is 1.5 trillion D plus 47.
Nice, it's cool. Doesn't beat my highest score, but never mind.
But when I'm not practicing at the phaser range, you can find me outside on the bike paths or on our Galaxy Class Facebook page. Pierre, when you're not trying to move to LA so you can guest star on Star Trek, which deck will you be on when you're searching for life forms?
I mean, when am I not moving to LA to become a guest star on Star Trek, you know? But you can find me on the Facebook at the United Federation of Podcasts Facebook page, as well as Twitter, PLaraco21. So, Joe, where can folks find you when you are not buying birthday beverages for famous aliens who have come through the wormhole?
Do you know what? That doesn't happen all the time because hotel prices at conventions are really expensive. So yeah, it's happened a couple of times and I'm quite generous. When I'm not doing that though, you can tweet me on the Twitter at JoeyJoe77UK. You can email me, joepodcasts@gmail.com, and I haven't received many emails recently, so get emailing. And you can get me, as you can get our other hosts, on the United Federation of Podcasts Facebook page.
Incoming transmission.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/UFPEarth. That's patreon.com/UFPEarth to get all the details. We have 4 different levels starting at just $1 per month and would appreciate any support you can give us.
We would like to recognize our executive producers, Brandon Shea Metalla, Ken Tripp, Zach Moore, and Tony Robinson. We would like to also thank Zach Tripp for our opening music.
Thank you for beaming aboard Galaxy Class. We are ready to leave dry dock and begin our adventures. We'll hope you'll join us soon.
Energize.
Stay classy, Galaxy.
I am Tosk.
Engage.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.